30, the State Enterprise Security Program, and bring forward provisions to establish it. So I have a committee sub that I would like to introduce and for us to discuss. The purpose of bringing this forward is twofold. First of all, we have instances across the state where we have cyber security threats that have brought in ransomware, and it's caused the states, some of our state agencies, to have to pay these ransoms. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but we don't really have a way of keeping track of what's happening out in the agencies. So this is a requirement for the Department of Information Technology Services to expand their enterprise security program to make sure that we do have a reporting requirement for agencies that are hit with a ransomware attack. They have to report within 24 hours to ITS, and then ITS has another 24 hours to do an investigation and to get a report up to the Lieutenant Governor's office, the Speaker's office, and the Attorney General's office. And I want to confirm the Attorney General's office. Was that in here?
No, it's Chairman.
Okay. So I'm going to offer an amendment here in a second to this to add the Attorney General's office. But this this report shall go to the Senate and House representatives for AET, and it'll also come to me, which would then go to the Speaker and the Lieutenant Governor. But that's just so that we understand how much we're having to pay in ransomware for these types of cyber attacks. I told you that this has twofold, or two reasons. The other side of this is that we also need the same information for any other state agency or any other agency in the state that receives state funds. So it includes school districts, it includes local areas. What we want to do is we need to know how much money is this costing, or these ransomware attacks costing the state. We also need to have some type of an autopsy, if you will, to know exactly what's happened, what's the cause of these attacks, and is there anything that we can do to do it. This would be the first time that we've requested or required information to be provided by the locals to the states for us to be able to track this. And we also want to use it for investigative purposes, again, with the Attorney General's office or Homeland Security or whoever their proper authorities are. If there's multiple attacks across the state, we need to know about it, and we don't have a way to do that. So that is a brief explanation of this bill. Are there any questions? I'll yield.
Do they right now, are they able to procure insurance to help insure against this right now?
State agencies are, and also your local agencies are. But as far as state goes, we do have a cyber insurance policy that is available. DFA has a policy that covers some part of our state network, but the individual agencies are able to go and get policies as well. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, so you're saying we had been attacked and we had paid ransomware? Yes. And nobody knows that?
Well, unless they voluntarily provided it to the state, we do not have a way of tracking it at this point in time. That's what this bill is intended to do, is to set it up into the enterprise security plan, or the enterprise cybersecurity plan, to make sure that information is tracked and provided in a detailed report. And I should say that we also have an annual report that's delivered to LSO and to the legislature to understand what our total costs have been for these cyber attacks for just ransomware. This is not data breach. This is just for ransomware stuff. And I'm asking ITS and their board to work on the enterprise plan to provide us additional data that we need, or additional information that they can already ask for, but we need to start tracking this a little bit more to understand how vulnerable we are as a state.
Yeah, I'm just surprised something like this doesn't exist already. you're saying we are making or have made payments, and nobody knows what we paid or who we paid?
No, let me say this. I know that there have been school districts that have been hit because it's been published in a lot of newspapers. So I've read those reports, and I know that there's been some attacks that have occurred at state agencies. But some of these could be, $500 for somebody to get their laptop back, they may be of different sizes and scopes. We just don't really know at this point in time. And hopefully we come back that we find that we have good practices that are in place that will prevent these kind of attacks. But it's inevitable. And if there is an attack, we need to know about it so that we can have some understanding of how much taxpayer dollars are going towards that. Senator McClendon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know of 2 municipalities who had their information, customer water information stolen.
It happens. It happens in the private sector. It happens in the public sector. Any other questions? So I entertain a motion.
We need to amend.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold. You are right. I'm going to amend this on lines 178. And do I need to do it again in line 165?
Yeah.
Amend on lines 165 and 178 in the same manner to add or include the Attorney General's office. Any questions? So I'll vote on the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So the amendment passes.
Now you're ready.
Now I'm ready for a motion
Out of
on
position,
the
do pass it up.
committee sub. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll go ahead and pass that out to the calendar. Senate Bill 2530. All right, next bill I want to bring up is Senate Bill 2531. And in your packet, I have a committee sub that is that I would like to just explain to the committee. And then I also have another amendment that I'm going to make to it. I'm going to pass this around. So I will explain this amendment. I will explain this amendment as I go through the committee sub. This is dealing with NG 911 services in the state. And we have discussed this in the committee. We've had hearings on it in the past. This is a work product that is not completed. It is something that we're still working on to make sure that we get it right and we get a good bill to work through the process. So we are still going to be making some tweaks to this. I want to first acknowledge the supervisors and Steve Gray and the work that they've done to help us get to this point, as well as the Sheriff's Association to try to make sure that we understand. And again, as I've said in the past, I do not want to put forward a bill that does anything but help the counties and help the locals address their issues with NG 911 and their sustainable funding that they have seen dwindle over the years because of a transition in technology away from landlines to more of a mobile technologies or wireless technologies or an IP technologies through voice over IP. So this bill, as we have discussed in the past, it establishes a board that would be at MEMA, or the authority would be at MEMA itself. MEMA would hire an executive director or a director for this for the 911 board. And that person will be the administrator who will have the final stamp on anything that comes out of the work of this authority. There is also a board of governance that's established, and the edits that I've provided to you that I want to take up as an amendment is the strike through language that we would like to make to section 3. And this deals with the actual appointments of the committee, or excuse me, of the Board of Governance. And what this is intended to do is that this is not necessary. This is not a political appointment per se. This is really technical advisors that need to be on this commission, and the entities that are making the recommendations more than likely are going to have subcommittees, or they're going to have subject matter experts within their field. So what we're suggesting is that that we would want these entities to provide 2 nominees to either the governor's office or the lieutenant governor's office for that to be chosen. So we make sure that we have a very good working group on this committee. This committee and Board of Governance would then be tasked with establishing a 911, a statewide NG 911 plan. That plan would then be sent out to the locals, and the locals would have guidance as well as some technical technical resources to be able to put together their own NG 911 plan that would need to be submitted. We haven't gotten to the time frame on when that is going to be submitted yet. We're trying to work that out with the governor's office and with the parties involved. So that will be something that we will add later on in the day or later on in the process. But what we are going to, or what this bill proposes, is that there is an emergency communication service fee that is collected today on all landlines, all voice over IP, all cellular connections, as well as prepaid wireless. What we are going to do is standardize that process, and all of the fees that would be collected would flow through, if you will, DOR, and then go down to the counties. And the money that flows down to the counties would be 70% of it will go into a fund that's called the Emergency Communication Service Fund. And that will fund operations and maintenance at the county level. And that's pretty much consistent with the percentage that they receive today out of that for those purposes. And then 30% of those funds would go into an NG 911 fund. And the NG 911 fund would be used for all the planning that's necessary. It also has the operation, or the cost for operating the board itself and the Board of Governance at MEMA. I think that's limited to 2.5%. I believe is what we have in here of that 30% that's available. The balance of that money, which is not to be less than, technically it's not to be less than 30%, is going to be used for capital improvements at the local level for NG 911 implementation. So on day one, if you think about this, when this bill passes and this goes into action, the bill is going to, or the money that flows to DOR and then goes down to the county, 70% will automatically go to their emergency communications district. That the 30% that goes into NG 911 fund is probably not going to be accessible because they haven't implemented a plan yet, but that money will accrue to that county's benefit for the purposes of implementing an NG 911 plan that they would propose. So you would not have access to that 30% money until your plan is approved by the Board of Governance and the authority, and then they would be able to deploy and have access to that 30 million or the 30% that's in the fund. That's a explanation of how the new money that's coming in for the emergency communication services transactions. But then there's also a third fund that is created for its NG 911 implementation fund. Now, there are some other opportunities for us to fund or to put money into those funds, but that's not in this bill. We're just creating it. And we want that NG 911 implementation to go towards additional capital costs for the municipal or for the locals to operate their emergency communications districts. That is a very quick overview because this is extremely complex as we've worked through this. Again, we're not 100% complete on this, but that is that is what we're working on and trying to get to. So what I would like to do first is I would like to go ahead and vote on the amendment to section 3 to insert the language that we have here, and you're good. Sam has this information. So that would be the first thing that I would like to do is to adopt these changes to the proposed committee sub. Any questions on that? All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay, now we're back on to the committee sub. Are there any questions that the members have at this point in time?
Public Service Commission. Does anything do with this?
I do not believe so. They have no jurisdiction over anything to do with emergency communications. So hold on one second. Senator Blackwell, you had a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From a communication standpoint, will sheriffs be able to talk to municipality, police departments, vice versa? Or is there going to be a common line where everybody can communicate and hear the same message?
Okay, so this is why this gets very confusing quickly, because this is really the backbone of an answering system for calls for assistance. When information comes into the PSAPs or the public safety answering points, that information is given to a dispatcher. That dispatcher then uses another type of communication. In most cases, it's the MISWIN system, which is an interoperable radio system. There are some areas of the state where the highway patrol cannot speak directly to the locals, but this is the platform that provides that interoperability so that our dispatchers across the state will be able to communicate with each other, and they will have this is as close to anything you see on CSI or anything. This is the implementation of that. So it gives us the fabric and the quilt that's necessary to have GIS and all of the other applications necessary for someone in DeSoto, for a dispatcher in DeSoto County to provide assistance in Harrison County if necessary, because that information will all be designed to be interoperable. So it doesn't have anything to do with the communication from officer to officer or officer to ambulatory service, but this is certainly a step in the right direction and is part of an overall comprehensive communications.
So if I understand, the dispatcher will be sort of like the center hub. You can talk to the municipal police, turn around and talk to the sheriff.
That's correct. Yes. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So from the perspective of the E911 commission, this was implemented here is it going to capture funds that they are already receiving?
Yes. So
how will it affect their operating budget?
So one of the things that we're trying to do is to make sure that this is seamless. Right now, the dollars that are collected that go to your county emergency communications district, your 911 commission, or to the county, it's general fund itself. It is sent directly from the provider, the service provider, to the county. So they write 180, or I'm sorry, 82, or however many emergency communications districts there are. So they'll write that check down. Today, upon passage of this bill, that will then go to DOR, and then DOR will make the diversion back to the counties in much of the same manner, but there could be there could be a little bit of a lag or a delay for one pay period. And we're all trying to work out with DOR on how to establish this so that it would be done seamlessly, and that the crossover we would be able to at least test it or try it before it goes into full implementation. So the dates are not, in many cases, they're omitted in this version of the bill. And by the way, this does have reverse repealer in it, just to make sure that we get everything worked out. But we are cognizant of the fact that there's going to be a turn off of one way and a turn on of the other. And we do not want to have any type of shortfall for our counties. Any other questions?
Should be past committee cup.
If you don't mind, I couldn't do this without Steve and the work of the supervisors. And I do want the committee to hear from him. I'm going to ask you, we've swallowed a lot with this bill. We've got a long way to go. Is there anything that you want the committee to know before we take a vote on this?
First of all, thank you, Chairman, for taking this up. As mentioned, it's happening in the process. I know there are other stakeholders that have involvement as well, from the GIS, the sheriff's side, and other members of the CMRS board. Just want to see if we get product moving forward. Again, to your point about making that transition seamless, there's a changeover. Just want to make sure the county receive the money because they have to continue to operate 911. We look forward to being assistance.
And then lastly, I'll just say that telecoms, and I apologize, probably the biggest, most controversial part of this bill is the fact that we're giving the local counties the ability to raise the fee that's collected on emergency communication service fund from the residential line today is $1. It stays $1. That cannot change. But for voice over IP, for the cellular phones and for prepaid, we're looking to give the counties the opportunity to go up to $4 for that fee. And we know that that's going to be something that the telecoms are going to push back on. But at the same time, this gives the counties the ability to go in and make those decisions on how much they need. Other states have done it this way. It's not the cleanest way to do it, in my opinion, but this is something that we feel like it may be a little bit more palatable for membership to be able to vote on this. So it will have a fee increase in it at the end of the day. And quite frankly, that's going to be the only way that this bill passes is with that fee increase, because the whole goal here is to provide a sustainable funding source and correct the funding source for our counties to be able to operate their NG 911 platforms. So that is something that I've left out and I felt was very important. Any other questions? All right, I will entertain that motion at this time.
Sufficient due past committee cup.
All those in favor? Any opposed? All right. We'll report that out and then I'll take a motion to rise and report. Thank you. Do what?
I know, that's why I sat there.
Said they were in the elections.
I sure did.